What would you say about your childhood? Was it great or something you would rather not remember? If it's the former, great, but you might be under trauma if it's the latter. Did you know that according to the National Center for PTSD, 6 out of 10 men experience one trauma minimum? For women, it's 5 out of every 10. Studies reveal that exposure to prolonged trauma may lead to post-traumatic stress disorder, aka PTSD. Did you know that according to the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, 1 in every 7 US kids has experienced child abuse or neglect? With all of this in mind, there's no doubt that most people go through trauma. However, recognizing that you did is another problem itself. Identifying unresolved trauma can be a very tricky ordeal. Many people who go into therapy don't even know that they have suffered trauma, disrupting their daily lives. Studies have proven that some level of forgetfulness prevents the individual from having an accurate awareness of the trauma. Before you recognize trauma, you must first know what it is. So, what is trauma? Trauma is a shocking or dangerous event you experienced or witnessed. For example, experiencing or witnessing child molestation as a kid is an event that can lead to trauma. However, numerous events can be traumatic. It was traumatic if the event made you feel deeply fearful, numb, helpless, and disconnected. You should note that what might be deeply traumatic for you might not have the same effect on another person. Thus, trauma is a personal experience. So here's the big problem with trauma: it might not go away. Often, long after the traumatic incident, it still clings to you, replaying itself in your head. So how can you identify it? Here, in this video, we'll look at 5 signs that you had a traumatic experience without realizing it. Also, you can learn more about yourself in general here on Psych Me Up, so remember to click the subscribe button. Bouts of disorientation. Have you ever spaced out while reading a book for a couple of minutes? Then you discover that you've spent almost an hour on the same page? Yes, stress can make you feel that way sometimes, but do you experience this at intervals? Disorientation is one common experience among people dealing with trauma. It is also considered a mild form of dissociation. Dissociation is when people disconnect from their thoughts, memories, emotions, or sense of identity. You overreact to things. How would you rate your reaction to situations lately? For example, let's say a car cuts you off on your way driving home, and you chase the car till you could get within range enough to shout abusive words at the driver. That would be overreacting. Of course, people typically experience a spectrum of emotions like anxiety, anger, fear, and sadness. However, you may be dealing with trauma when you consistently lose your cool over small events. Understand that it may be due to trauma when you find yourself excessively giving inappropriate responses to small issues. Flashbacks. Have you experienced moments when a wave of unpleasant memories completely takes you over? Like watching a bad movie, you can't turn off the TV or leave. Flashbacks can be regarded as moments when memories go wild. It's when you're disconnected from yourself and suddenly can't control your mind. Flashbacks essentially take you back to your unresolved trauma. There are 2 components of the brain that makes this possible. First is the amygdala, which encodes memories of previous events so you can respond to threats when you encounter them again. Second, the hippocampus catalogs all the separate details of an experience so you can consciously recall them as a memory. You get overwhelmed and become overly passive. Everything seems to be out of control lately, and it's like everybody has it in for me. This kind of thinking may signal that you have an unresolved traumatic experience. When a person gets easily overwhelmed and starts to believe that they are helpless after stressful experiences, that person has what is known as learned helplessness. Learned helplessness is when a person believes a condition is inescapable and unchangeable. Shame. Have you been comparing yourself to other people facing the same challenges as you and ask yourself, why can't I deal with my problems like that? If you often feel ashamed and label yourself negatively, you may have certain unresolved trauma. Whatever signs you're aware of in your life, do not be adverse to seeking professional help when you notice a pattern of unhelpful behaviors or thoughts. You can learn more about the mind in our next video. See you there.